to the Barnegat Democratic Club meeting. We appreciate all of you being here. And we'll get started with our business at hand. And we are pleased to have Andy Kim, candidate for Congress in the 3rd District, joining us tonight. So we want to give him as much time as possible to chat with you, take your questions, and for you to have an opportunity to mingle with him over some refreshments. My name is Ron Nichols. I'm the president of the club, and I'll introduce today as we have Marion Clementi, who's our VP, Peg Gould, our secretary, and Ken Banks, our treasurer. You've heard that tonight is membership renewal night. We're glad you all came. Unfortunately, Andy wasn't able to be here, so we're asking you all to join tonight. I'm only kidding. You know how they put up a star so I can get to him. Anyway, membership is available tonight. We appreciate it if you want to join the club. It's $15, $10 for seniors. So that's our business for membership. We also want you to know that if you're a Patriots fan, we put some blue out for you. And if you're an Eagles fan, we put some green out for you. So we handled everything, I think, that we had to do officially. We are a political organization, so we did follow that. So I will officially call the meeting to order and ask you to stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. We also want to welcome guests from our Waretown Club and our Stafford Club. Thank you all for being here. And the president of the Waretown Club, Pat is here if you want to just wave that. And Joan, the president of Stafford. And if there's anyone I missed, I apologize, but we appreciate all of you being here from pretty much the entire district and Ocean County. So thank you all. Next order of business is the approval of minutes. Now, we had the election, we had the holidays, and we haven't met since October. So Peg has our October minutes. She'll read for approval.
Wednesday, October 25th. Attendance: Ron Nichols, Marion Clementi, Peg Gould, Ken Bank. Treasurer's report: starting balance beginning of the month was $256.98. We had deposits of 70, bringing our ending balance to $326.98. There were no withdrawals. We had a guest speaker that month.
Use the market.
Ending balance $326.98, and we had a guest speaker that month from Barnegat Bay, Britta Wenzel. I took extensive notes on Britta's discussion about Barnegat Bay and the watershed. If you are interested in them, you can just send me an email. My email is and I would be happy to share those notes with you. That was the extent of our meeting. Meeting was adjourned at 8:40. Thank you.
May I have a motion from the Barnegat membership to move the minutes? And the second? Sal? All in favor, Barnegat membership members? Aye. Opposed? Okay, thanks. Next order of business, approval of the treasurer's report. Ken, if you would. Okay, you might want to use the mic here.
The opening balance on November the 1st was $326.98. During the month of November, there was a deposit of $45, no withdrawals, and the balance on November 30th is $371.98. During the month of December, there were no deposits, no withdrawals, and the closing balance as of December 31st was $371.98.
Okay, and do we have the May I have a motion to approve the treasury report? Motion here, second. All in favor of Barnegat membership? Aye. Opposed? Okay, thank you. Treasurer's report is approved. I asked Dan Ward, by the way, Dan Ward and Paul Whitcraft are here this evening, and I'd like to just give them a round of applause. They did
We want them to run again.
We made an impact in Barnegat that Democrats have not made in quite a while. And those two worked endlessly every weekend, during the week, getting out to knock on doors. We had, Sally driving them around, Marianne driving them around. There was a great effort, and I think we really made a dent in what went on in Barnegat politics this past November. So I am really thankful they were our candidates, and I appreciate their efforts, and thank you both very much. I did ask Dan to update us on the election, just so we have a sense of what went on since we haven't really met since the November election.
Can you hear me? So as I said, I had the pleasure of running with Paul Whitcraft, and we had a good showing. Barnegat is always tough, we have 5 Republicans on the committee right now, but we were 55% to 49% was our margin. So closest to Democrats come in the line. We've won, I believe, 4 districts and tied in 1, and for those of you who know, we have 15. So we had a really good turnout. We needed to change 300 more people's minds. So yeah.
It's a stellar job, really.
So we're looking forward to next year. I think Paul and
Paul, would you like to?
Well, yeah, I would. If I know I was going to be up there, I'm going to shave this morning. I really appreciated the support that Dan and I both got from all of you in November. It was a real pleasure working with Dan and the rest of the committee. Everybody worked really hard, and it was a really unique experience for me. The only thing I wanted to add to what Dan said is that if you look at the non-senior communities, in other words, the senior communities where they have polling places in their own community, if you look at the other voters, we lost by only about 0.5%. In the senior communities where they had a 94% turnout, because all they have to do is walk down to their clubhouse, we lost 60% to 40%. The thing that I think is a little bit disturbing is that those are the communities that are most difficult to speak to. Many times if you go in there, they don't want to talk to you, they don't want to answer the door, they're not interested in having their opinion changed, and so it's very difficult to attack that crowd. It's good to see a lot of senior people here tonight. If you live in one of those communities, you need to take that message back to your community and open up your doors so people can come in and speak at your clubhouses, make sure that they're getting different points of view. Thank you.
Now I'd like to call on Marianne Clementi, our Barnegat Democratic Chairperson, to give us a chairperson.
Hi, it's not going to be much of a report, but...
Thank you, Marianne.
Okay. I don't think man, I need...
I know, I've been on that subject.
Basically, it's just about the upcoming election. We may need another candidate to run this year. So if anybody is interested in running, please see me. I think Dan is interested in running again, and so we need a running mate. So love to have a woman, but if anybody's interested, see me. All right, that's it. I'm not gonna for this meeting because we want to get to the meeting.
Exactly. Okay, officially, that's our report for this evening. Is there any other business by Barnegat members to come before the club?
The other thing, next month, I'm working on trying to get a meeting on the opioid crisis in Ocean County and in Barnegat. I have a couple of speakers lined up, so be on the lookout for word on that. Hopefully we'll get we will get a good crowd from that. I mean, it's of interest to not only the families in Barnegat, but I'm sure folks in the senior communities have children and grandchildren that are affected by this horrible crisis that we have amongst us. Okay, so stay tuned.
Before we officially introduce Andy to speak with us tonight, I just want to draw your attention to the back. We do have a table set up with, it's Andrea? Is Andrea? There you go. Andrea from Andy's campaign is in the back. She can answer questions. She'll also be happy if you help them out with some donations, or do you have literature for us also?
We have some sign-up sheets, and then we also, we don't have literature with us right now, but Andy will be telling you all about him.
Okay, fantastic. I think that's where it all starts, at that table in the back. After you hear from Andy, sign up, offer to help, volunteer for the campaign, make a donation if you can. All of that would be greatly appreciated. And also, if you have not signed in, when you entered the room, if you would just give us your name and contact information so that we can inform you of other speakers, such as our opioid seminar that will happen next month. We appreciate that as well. So without further ado, I'm going to ask Mary Ann to officially introduce Andy Kim, our candidate for Congress in the 3rd District.
Most of you did not put your phone number or email. Email is so important. If you could go back and put your emails down, we appreciate it. We are probably going to have a whole bunch of series, speakers that should be of interest to everybody. On that note, I'd like to introduce our next congressman from the 3rd District. Is so qualified to run in the district. He's a Rhodes Scholar. You'll recall that Bill Bradley, he did quite well in Congress. And he's worked in, it's safe to say, this group, the Obama administration, in a number of roles. I told him in a lot of his literature going out to Ocean County, don't mention Obama. But it's safe in here. He's worked with General Petraeus and General Allen in Afghanistan. He's worked on the NSC as the Iraqi advisor. He has a tremendous amount of experience. He's worked in the Pentagon. So he can get around in that quagmire we call Washington, D.C. So on that note, I'd like to introduce Andy Kim, candidate for Congress.
Can you guys hear me okay if I stand like this? Thank you so much for coming around. Thank you so much for having me here. I mean, this is exactly what we need to be doing leading up, not just to November 2018, but going forward. And a lot of this is about making sure that we have this infrastructure, that people are staying engaged and staying involved. So that's the big reason why I wanted to come out here today, is that when they told me that they were making a big push for a membership drive, trying to get people to not just, the way I sort of see it is, how do we engage our democracy not just on election day, but every day? Find a way in which we can understand our role in this democracy, our role in understanding what it means to be a citizen. The reason why I'm here in front of you today is I decided to do this crazy thing of running for Congress. some of you I've met before, many of you I have not. So what I want to do is tell you a little bit about myself, why I decided to do this crazy thing, and how we're going to win this in November. The reason why I'm here in front of you today is because this district, the New Jersey 3rd Congressional District, this part of New Jersey has given me and my family every opportunity we've ever had in life. My father grew up in an orphanage. He was a survivor of polio as a child. He went on, because of our life here in Jersey, was able to become, get a PhD and able to become a renowned scientist, someone who's dedicated his life to trying to cure cancer, trying to cure Alzheimer's. My mother, someone who grew up in a farm, understood what it meant to be hungry, what it meant to have family. She was able to become a great nurse here in South Jersey, a nurse who has helped people over at Kennedy Memorial Hospital over on the other side. And that was how they raised me, was this understanding, the lessons that there's nothing more honorable that one can do in your life than trying to help others and save others. That's how they raised me. And for me, all of my opportunities, everything that I've been able to accomplish, I really owe to this district, this part of New Jersey. I did my entire kindergarten through 12 in the public school systems here in the New Jersey 3rd Congressional District. I hit my first home run here. I had my very first job at a bookstore here. I learned everything about life. And I've been able to accomplish a lot. My family has lived that American dream. I was able to take that public school education that I got here and become a Rhodes Scholar, and be able to get a PhD, and learn about the world, and travel the world. But what I wanted to do with that was I wanted to invest that back in the country, back in the community. I wanted to become a public servant. So I've been able to, I've been a U.S. diplomat for the last 8 years. And I served as an advisor to General Petraeus out in Afghanistan. I served as a Middle East advisor at the Pentagon to the Secretary of Defense, and I did 2 years as National Security Advisor and a counterterrorism expert at the White House, serving under President Obama. I've served under both Democrats and Republicans. I was a career public servant. And I'm really proud of it, because I believe that there's something honorable in serving the country, and it's about putting the people first, putting the country first, before partisan politics. And that's what we find so broken right now in Washington right now, is that we see this as just this fight between these two tribes, and it's this idea that what's at stake is not just healthcare for the people, but it's who can wrangle in, who can score a political victory. But for those of us not in Washington, it's not a game to us. This isn't about who wins and who loses, because who loses when we have gridlock and partisanship in Washington is the American people. That's who's losing. And that's what drives me crazy about this, because as a public servant, I can tell you and assure you that there are a lot of people in our government, people who work day in and day out, no matter who's president. There are a lot of people who are looking out for us. A lot of people who are trying to do good. But when I see my whole building, the State Department, being gutted by this administration, people and experts being tossed aside because they refuse to take that loyalty pledge. Well, their loyalty is to the United States. That's an oath that I took when I served in government, to protect and defend this country. I take that very seriously, and that oath did not end the day that I stepped away from government. I'm going to hold that for the rest of my life, because the way I describe it is that service isn't just a job, it's a way of life. So my promise and my pledge to protect and defend this country doesn't just end the day that I handed back my badge. I want to make sure I push forward and do this, because especially right now, because this is, as I said, is the district that gave me everything. I left the White House to be a dad, to focus in on being a dad. It was really important to me. Going off to Iraq and Afghanistan, I can tell you those challenges don't even come close to learning how to change diapers and take care of little babies. I have a 2.5-year-old baby, a toddler, I guess, and a 6-month-old baby. So clearly it makes a whole lot of sense that I'm running for congressman. But when I really dig down deep and try to understand, try to convey why it is that I'm here in front of you, I have to talk about that, because that is exactly why I'm here. Because those same opportunities that I have in life, are they going to be available to my children? This uncertainty that I feel right now, that many of you feel right now, where we don't even know, we don't know what's going to happen to our country a year from now, let alone tomorrow. Just given how crazy the news cycle is and how things are just, exploding left and right. All I want to do is raise my family with stability, raise them with love, raise them in a way where I can let them know that I am going to leave you with a better world. I want them to have every opportunity. My youngest son, as I told you, is 6 months old. 7 months ago, a month before he was born, my wife and I went to the hospital for the last ultrasound, and we're really excited. The ultrasound, you don't get to see your child too often, and it's up on the screen. And I actually realized I'm really terrible at identifying the ultrasound. They always tell me, there's the leg, there's the head. I can never figure it out. But nonetheless, it's always exciting. You always get that picture afterwards that you can share with your friends and family. I remember that day just very vividly, because while we were going through that procedure, the doctor turned off the machine. And he turned to my wife and I and said, "There's a problem." Told us that our child was dramatically underweight. They didn't realize just how bad it was. Told us that they weren't sure what the problem was. Weren't sure whether or not my son-to-be was going to potentially have a growth problem that would affect him, potentially affect him for the rest of his life. I was devastated. My wife and I were devastated. We literally didn't know what to say back to that. What happened over that next month was we had to go to that hospital pretty much every single day. Do all sorts of different things. We had to do everything we could to try to make sure that our son has every opportunity in life. But I was terrified. So I would go and sit in the hospital lobby, waiting for the doctor to call us. And as a scared father, all I could do was just watch the TV to try to pass time, try not to think about what's happening right now. Well, unfortunately, the only thing that was on TV, the only thing that was on the news 7 months ago, was the Republicans in Congress doing everything that they could, trying to make it harder for people that need the care to be able to get the care. Now, I remember looking at that screen, and who do I see leading that charge? My own representative, your own representative, revived a bill from the dead. Said, "I got an idea on how to make this worse. I got an idea on how to get that Freedom Caucus on board." Came up with the idea of gutting pre-existing condition protections, essential benefit protections, in order to be able to score a political victory. And I'm watching that while sitting in the hospital, wondering whether or not my child is going to have problems for the rest of his life. I couldn't believe it. When President Trump came into office, when the November 2016 election happened, I made myself 2 promises. First promise, and I think many of you agree to this one, is that I will never take any election. I will never, ever go into election day assuming that somebody's going to win. Number 2, I promised myself that I will not assume that someone else will stand up and fight on my behalf. If I have a problem, if I feel like we need change, what am I going to do? What are you going to do? That's the way that I approach it. So as I sat there watching this on TV, I asked, what am I going to do about it? my role going to be if I can't stand what I see? So I promised myself then that my son's born and born healthy, if he's stable, my family is able to move forward, we will, and I will do everything I humanly can to hold this man accountable for his actions. Thankfully, my child was born stable, he's healthy, he's actually getting a bit fat now, which But I'm sure even when he's my age, I'll still be calling him, well, did you eat enough? Because I'm a dad and I can't help it. It's just how it happens. And that same instinct is driving me to do what it is I'm doing. I can assure you I love being here. I really do. But I can also assure you that I wish I could be with my kids right now. That me coming here to see you means that I can't tuck them into bed tonight. And my 6-month-old just started eating solid foods for the first time last week, and I miss it. He rolled over, did a full log, I missed it. All these firsts in his life that I'm missing. And it tears me up inside. But what I recognize and what I always hold dear and I hold true when I come and speak to people here in this district, people who 10 months before Election Day are willing to take time out of their lives to come talk to me. What I recognize is that I'm doing this for them. That we're doing this for our families. We're stepping up and trying to find ways in which we can work together to build a better life, not just for us, but our children. For me, I think back to my time in government. And I wanted to just share this one last story. August 6th and 7th, 2014 were the best and worst days of my time in government. These were days where I got calls from the Situation Room when I was working at the White House, telling me that tens of thousands of people, Yazidi minorities in Iraq, who were being persecuted by ISIS, were being chased out of their homes, and they fled up to the top of a mountain called Sinjar Mountain. We estimated possibly 30,000 to 50,000 people abandoned their cars at the bottom of the mountain, scrambled up the rocky cliff, and were stuck on top of this mountain with no food or water, with ISIS in hot pursuit. I couldn't believe it. That it just epic proportions. I tried to understand what they were going through. There was nobody coming to the rescue. The Iraqi army was disintegrating that summer in the face of ISIS. The question was, what are we going to do about it? What am I going to do about it? Without assuming that someone else will stand up and fight on their behalf. What am I going to do about it? Now, I remember talking to the White House Chief of Staff that morning, Dennis McDonough, telling him, we have to do something about this. He said, is it as bad as it sounds? What I told him is that this is something where we might see a genocide within 24 to 48 hours. We might see the largest massacre of people since World War II. So I promised him that I would get a plan, that I would get a proposal that we can take to the president that day. And I gathered the best minds that I could find, the hardest working people across the government, and locked them in the Situation Room, and we just put our minds to talk to people all over the world, our armed servicemen and women, military planners, intelligence officers. We pulled in every bit of knowledge, every bit of expertise that we could do, and put together a plan that at 6 p.m. that day, I walked into the Oval Office, briefed the President on, and he approved it. Within a matter of hours, we were able to approve a plan to try to help save tens of thousands of lives. 24 hours later, we had cargo planes going and dropping tens of thousands of pounds of food and water and shelter material and doing everything we can to try to help save people and stop a genocide. I was full. It was the finest moment I had ever seen in government. Because what had happened was that people weren't there thinking, is that a Democrat idea or a Republican idea? They were just focused in. It was like when I worked out in Afghanistan, no one there ever asked me if I was a Democrat or a Republican. We were just trying to get things done for the country. Trying to find ways to serve the mission of helping save lives. Well, that's what we were accomplishing that day. And it was remarkable to see what our country can accomplish, that in 24 hours, we can come up with a plan and execute a plan that helps save tens of thousands of lives on the other side of the world, on top of a mountain in the middle of the desert in enemy territory. That's what our country can accomplish. So for me, why I'm doing this is not just because I believe we deserve better representation in Congress. I do believe we do. But what I believe is that we deserve a better democracy. We deserve a better government. And what I'm pushing myself to help with and want to work with you on is because I have seen a government that can inspire. I have seen a government at its finest when people are putting aside those hyper-partisanship and putting aside that inflammatory rhetoric and is rather sitting down with each other and saying, what can we do to work together and move this forward, help save lives, help save the American people, help all of us. And that's what we're trying to accomplish. And that's what I feel like is at stake here in 2018. So I want to work with all of you. And I'm really glad you came out. I want to have this conversation with you about what's on your mind, what keeps you up at night. Because there's a lot on my mind. There are a lot of issues that keep me up at night. My family, my mother's about to retire in 2 months. She doesn't have any savings. Going to be completely dependent on Social Security. I'm sure some of you or your family are in similar situations. How do we find ways in which we can get better paying jobs for people here in this district? Find ways to get our government to move forward on an infrastructure plan that can help us rebuild our roads, our tunnels, our bridges, things that can create thousands of jobs. Things that can help us find ways to ensure that we all have health care, rich or poor, that we all have some coverage that can make sure that we are not just one crisis or one accident away from disaster. That all of us can find some opportunity to be able to realize that American dream that we always wanted to pursue and achieve. But recognizing you can't get there if you're sick. You can't get there if you don't have any savings. We need to find ways to, because so many of Americans are living paycheck to paycheck. And realizing that that's too fragile. We can be doing better. That we can find the health care that we can have competitive. And what out here in Volusia County in particular, realizing what a disaster like Superstorm Sandy can do to just wipe out everyone's hopes and dreams, right? Change the course of their lives. And how do we find a government that can help make that better? Recognizing that we aren't, this is a community that's still recovering from that storm. But we all recognize from what we saw this year in Houston, what we saw elsewhere, that it's going to happen again. It's just a matter of time. Are we better prepared? And I would say we're not. Our leadership for 5 years has not been able to find a way forward that makes us safer. That makes sure that the problems that we face are going to be fixed. Instead, Tom MacArthur is leading an effort to make it even harder with the National Flood Insurance, with all these other issues that affect communities here in Ocean. And I'm glad that we're going to be having speakers talk about the opioid crisis because it's in our communities. It's hurting so many of us. And I've had an opportunity to be able to sit down with a lot of people who've been affected by the crisis and have had family members lost. What I can tell you is that when we have 142 Americans dying every day from drug overdose from the opioid crisis, why isn't our government more mobilized? Why do they call it an emergency? emergency but put $0 behind it. For me, I dedicated my entire career to helping trying to save this, helping protect the homeland, protect our country. And what I can tell you is that 60,000 people die every year from overdose. That's way more of a crisis in terms of numbers that we feel that we're experiencing in terms of war and conflict around the world for Americans. That's a problem. So for me, when someone asks, why is a national security expert getting involved on healthcare? Why is a national security expert getting involved on the opioid crisis? It's because that is a national security crisis. We have a national security crisis right here in our own communities all across this country, in these towns just like Barnegat. What I want isn't just better policies, I want better politics. I think we deserve that. So I made a couple of promises to this district to show you that I want to reimagine what it means to be a representative, what our Congress should be like. I make a promise to you that if elected, I will work to be the most transparent, the most accountable, the most open and accessible member of Congress that there is in Congress. I will have daily reports coming out from my office in DC, letting you know what I'm working on, who I'm meeting with, where I stand on different issues, how I'm going to be voting. So I believe that you shouldn't have to go to CNN or C-SPAN to be able to figure out what your member of Congress is doing. 2, I promise that every month I will hold a public town hall in district. You deserve to know when you're going to be able to meet your member of Congress and raise your voice, and raise your opinions, and tell them what's keeping you up at night. There should be predictability in that. It shouldn't be difficult for us to be able to communicate. I still call MacArthur's office every day. My problems with the different issues going on. I don't think he's listening. But it shouldn't be that difficult. For me, that's the way I see it. Is, he's somebody who is a CEO. He's used to be at the head of the boardroom table. He sees himself as the CEO of this district. That's not how it works. If elected, I would have 750,000 bosses, and it's about trying to tell you what I'm up to, letting you know, and so you can decide whether or not I'm doing a good enough job. You can tell me when I'm not doing something that's for you. That's the way I want to see it, just the total opposite of the way he's operating. For him, when you go shopping for a congressional district, you can win. That's what you get. He's not from here. He's not looking out for us. He's something where he said he's a moderate, he said he's bipartisan.
He's a Trump guy. He's Trump like.
Yeah. Well, he is. He's not moderate. He's not bipartisan. He's just personally ambitious. He's looking out for himself. He enjoys spending more time with Paul Ryan than he does talking to people in this district. Yeah. That's exactly right. The other promise I made is that I'm not taking corporate money in this campaign. I believe that our democracy, that the core unit of our democracy should be the citizen, not a dollar sign. For me, I want to make sure that I'm focused in on the people, focused in on their issues, and I want to promise to you, and that's what I want to do, I want to be transparent, that I'm not going to be someone that takes that corporate money, and you don't need to know where my allegiance lies with. My allegiance lies with you. Because when I look at where Tom MacArthur is raising his money from, he's raising more money from corporations and organizations than he is from individual people. That's a problem in our country. It's a big problem.
How are you going to pay for television?
Yeah. Well, what I can tell you is that in the 4.5 months that we've been actively campaigning, making sure we're raising money from people, we've been able to raise over $600,000. $600,000 from over 6,000 people in just 4.5 months. I'm extremely proud of it. We raise money across New Jersey, a lot of it right here in this district, but also And when I call people in Wyoming and Hawaii and Alaska, and I call them and I thank them for their contribution, I ask them, why did you give to this race in New Jersey? You know, do you know somebody who lives here? Did you drive through the turnpike one day? Or what's Well, what I hear from them is they said, I gave to you because what Tom MacArthur did on healthcare doesn't just hurt you in New Jersey, it hurts all over. We didn't ask to be in the national spotlight. Tom MacArthur made us in the national spotlight. But what I can tell you is that the rest of the country is looking at us. And they're asking, what is the New Jersey 3rd? What are the people of the New Jersey 3rd going to do in November 2018? They know that it's incredibly important, as you do as well, to take back the House if we want to have a real check and balance against this administration. That is going to be determined by about 40 races across this country, out of 435. The rest of the country looking at us, saying you are at the front lines of our democracy. You are one of the ones that are going to determine how the rest of the country works, and how the next 2 years, or sadly possibly longer, are going to be. So, as I told you, it's having 2 little kids. It's not really, it wasn't my plan to be running for Congress. I'm very truthful in telling you I did not plan to run for Congress. But I also didn't plan to have my member of Congress doing everything he can to make it harder for millions of Americans to be able to get it. When I was out in Afghanistan, there was a line that people would always say. When we're trying to think through, figure out what we can do out there in that chaos to be able to shape something that can make people safer. People would say, you fight on the battlefield on which you dropped. Well, November 2016, that battlefield was dropped on us. What Tom MacArthur did, that battlefield was dropped on us. We are fighting on the battlefield on which we dropped, and on November 2018, I can use your help. I'm doing everything we can to get this district, to get this country on a better path. So I appreciate you guys all.
I live in Mirage, and I go to the gym, and Fox News is on the TV. I had lunch at Jenny's today, and Fox News was on the TV. When I try to talk to anybody in the community, I get Fox News talking points smacked in my face. Now, I have all the answers. I know I rewatch MSNBC or CNN all day and all night. It's the only thing that's on TV. Okay? I have the answers. I know what to say. They won't listen. That's what you're up against, and you tell me how to keep that back.
One of the most important and humbling things that you experience when you go around the district is understanding the different ways in which people are getting the information. Understanding just how different it is and how all of us live in our own little silos. Finding ways in which we can break that out. What I can tell you is that we're building an operation with this campaign that's going to use all the tools that are available to us to try to get that message out. Because when I go around and talk to people in this district, I ask them, how do you think Tom MacArthur's doing? What do you think about his job he's doing? They say who? They say who? Or they said, I think I heard something about healthcare. Yeah, I can't really remember. There are a lot of people, though, that know exactly what he's done. And our job is to work together to make sure that every single person in this district knows what he did. But that by the time November comes around, that we have an informed electorate, that people here have the information they need to be able to make a choice.
But how can you give them that information when they won't listen to you? You know, the gentleman that was, I'm sorry, I don't remember his name, that was up before that said, we lost 60%, you know, and when they try to knock on the door, they can't get into. How do you combat that? They won't listen. They just won't listen. What do you do?
They won't even accept facts.
No.
I told them facts.
And you give them, and we got the facts. We got the facts.
No, that's right. It is a problem. It is a problem. This is, this is something that's going to be something that we have to work together over a long term as well. It's very dangerous. It's extremely dangerous. And there were willingness, so that's right. We're going to send around a sign-up sheet, by the way. Just, if you want to get involved, if you want to volunteer, please let us know. But where we're at here is, we're going to do everything we can. Okay, I can't tell you that we're going to be able to reach every single person and be able to get that. What we are going to do is we're going to run the largest campaign that this district has ever seen. That we're going to have the resources, with your help and with other people's help, we're going to try to get the resources we can to make sure you get this message out. Now, that's going to be up on the air. Hold on for a second.
I'm sorry. I'm waiting. I'm sorry. Just there's people watching, and I want to make sure that they can hear you. And if you don't use the mic, I mean, you're pretty good. But if you don't use the mic, these people can't hear you. So I'm asking to please consider passing the mic around so everybody can hear you.
So what I'm saying is we're going to do everything we can to have the resources. We have over 1,000 volunteers already in district, 10.5 months before Election Day. We're going to build a real army here to do everything we can to spread that word. We're going to have the largest get-out-the-vote operation that this district and this county has ever seen. We're going to do everything we can. It's going to be tough. It is. But we can't shy away from that fight. And we have to recognize again that that's the battlefield in which we drop. These are the tools that are at our disposal. And I want to work with all of you on how we can make sure we connect. And as I said, with some of these retirement communities, we have such a difficult ability to get in. If you will live there or if you know people there, let us know. Because that allows us to figure out what is our strategy. How can we be able to have those communications?
Well, Ryan going after Medicare is going to be going to retirement. Once people hear that their Medicare is endangered because they want to pass away to the private side, that's how you get into retirement. That's how you get the people to those communities.
Excuse me, are we having an order with the microphone or yes, or the free floor?
I tell you what.
Yeah.
Let me take control.
Yeah.
Pardon me. So the microphone is important for the streaming. So when Marianne recognizes you, she'll come up to you with the mic, you stand. If anyone else wants to cue, I'll pay attention and we'll call on you next and get the microphone.
And also it's difficult to band back and forth.
So please do not make it a conversation.
Right.
Just ask the question
And that's it.
All right, thank you. I appreciate that.
Okay, Karen.
Go ahead.
Good evening. My name is Carol Gay. I missed you when you were in town during the Revolution meeting. But I, like you, stay up night after night for many, many reasons, and I know I can't get to all the issues that keep me up at night. But from your history, you've talked about your family history in healthcare, your life experience with healthcare. This is something that's obviously near and dear to all of us, especially with healthcare under attack, increasingly under attack. Medicare, Social Security, increasingly under attack. So what I would like to know is when you get to Washington, will you sign on to HR 676, universal health care, Medicare for all? Yes. Because we need everybody, nobody else.
Yes.
So, what I definitely want to make sure that we can have universal health. I want to make sure that every American, rich or poor, can have that health care. Because we should not be having a system that prioritizes profits over living. So I absolutely want to get there. I think there's a lot of good in those proposals. I think we can make them better. As I've gone and talked with Democratic leaders, I think there's a lot that we can do to make sure that there is more clarity in terms of what's going to happen to workers. People in the healthcare industry, how to make
transition in the bill.
Right.
Mr. Gill,
Transition in the bill.
Hold on 1 second, please. Let me finish answering.
No, that's right. And making sure that we have what's in there in terms of job trainings and everything that we need to be able to move forward. So we have a lot more details because what I want.
It's in the bill.
I understand, but we can have greater detail about what's going on, what we can do to improve that, and what we can do to make sure that we know exactly what's going to be out-of-pocket costs. I just want to make sure that we have those details because for us, we've been, for my criticism in part for the Republicans is that they've been pushing for a health care bill before there was a CBO score for the Congressional Budget Office.
I'm
Before
talking about what's in Congress now.
Yeah.
HR 676. Medicare for all.
And I'm saying I want to make sure we can get that universal coverage. And I want to make sure that we can get that kind of system that will have people before profits. I want to make sure that we can be part of that discussion and make that a better bill. And make sure that we can do everything we can to improve it. So I agree on the values of that. I agree with you on the goal. I just want to make sure that we have the best possible plan there to be able to do that.
Okay. Marty, you have a question?
I've heard a lot of talk about why you want to be the congressman in the 3rd District and what you'll do when you get to Washington. But I haven't heard about how is that going to happen. What is the strategy for you getting to Washington? I know your motivation. You're motivated to be 3rd District congressperson. We're motivated for you to be that person. But yet, when it comes to the strategy, for instance, I would have to ask you, is the implication, a good implication or bad implication, when Phil Murphy became governor of the state? What is the implication to that when he won an overwhelming majority for the state and lost miserably in the county of Ocean? What does that mean to you? Okay, so that's something. The other question I have is, do you know Phil Murphy from his campaign? Were you active in his campaign? Will you expect his help, his endorsement? Let's talk about strategy. Let's talk about getting there. Okay? Let's talk about the Asbury Park press. How are we going to surmount their bias and their Republican leanings and their conservative leanings? Because when they endorse someone, it really counts in Ocean County. And knowing full well that the Republican Party will throw everything they possibly can into the war chest of Tom Barnegat. Okay? It's a big problem. It's a lot of work to be done. Let's hear about the work. Okay?
Yeah.
All right. This really isn't a strategy session, but I'm going to leave it up to you.
I'm happy to talk about
strategy session. It's a question of, what are you going to do and how you...
It's resources.
It's resources, yeah. It's not a strategy session. That will come.
Yeah. And it's incredibly important. We want to make sure that we have a campaign that can win. And what we've been working on is working from the Delaware River out here to the shore to make sure that we're building up the infrastructure that we can to be able to do.
Have you worked with Phil Murphy?
I have.
Okay.
I have been able to work with Phil Murphy with his campaign. We're in close touch, as well with a lot of other leadership of the Democratic Party here in New Jersey, as well as nationally as well. So we've been getting a tremendous amount of support from the National Democratic Party, from the state, and from the county levels as well. So this is going to be something that's from at all levels, and frankly also something that we're focused in, not just on the congressional race, but we've got to focus in top to bottom. I worked very hard for a lot of different candidates in the 2017 November election because it's critically important that we work at all levels of our economy. For me, the way that I see this going forward is that we need to run a campaign that's going to have the resources that we need to have the largest get out the vote operation that this district's ever seen. As I told you, we have over 1,000 volunteers already. We're going to try to increase that by many things. And we're going to make sure that we are doing everything we can to move the needle there. We are lining up different endorsements from labor unions, from organizations, political advocacy organizations, at the national level as well as the local level, working and making sure we're having these types of discussions and building up the support from these communities. So we are doing everything we can to be able to build that infrastructure and come up with a message, come up with a campaign that's going to be able to do this. We're very deliberate in that process. So, as I said, I may not have all the answers for you on all these different issues just yet because we're making sure we're doing this strategically. We're making sure that we have an opportunity to listen to you and your concerns and before we are able to determine what our course forward is on some of these decisions. So I'm glad we're having this conversation, and the question you ask is one that's a real just question for you to ask, because you should not, I don't want to just run a campaign just because. I want to make sure we run a campaign that can win. And you and I spoke last time. Last time that I was here. And I remember you asking, how are we going to engage with labor unions? How are we going to engage with some of these organizations? And what I can tell you is that since I last saw you, I've had a lot of conversations with organizations, including labor organizations, that used to support McCarthy. What I can tell you is there's a lot of interest in what we're building here. And because they saw that we could raise the money, that we can get these endorsements, that we can run a disciplined campaign, they're all of a sudden paying attention to us, paying attention to this district. And while they know that McCarthy is going to have more money than us, what I can tell you is we're going to run a campaign focused on getting our message out. We have our goal, what we need to be able to hit to be able to do that. And even if he's able to outraise us, I still think we're going to have a lot of other assets, because I'm sure that he is not going to have nearly as many people to knock on doors and do other things that we do, because we have the momentum, we have the power of the people on our side, and we have a lot of that energy that's going to be able to go into this and add a lot of firepower to this operation.
Thank you,
I forgot to thank Amanda Lynn here, who made our sign for welcoming me in. So I figured before she speaks, I'm going to thank her. Okay. Hi, I'm Amanda. I'm from Waretown. My question is, so you mentioned that you did your whole K-12 experience in this district. With someone who is woefully inept as Betsy DeVoe in charge of our education system right now, do you have a plan in place to sort of combat that and stop the privatization of our public schools, and also empower them to provide leaders and the ability for students to be prepared for the way that the employment market is going instead of the way it's been?
No, that's right. I mean, we need to make sure that we're fighting back. I mean, we see just all across the Trump administration, leaders put into place that they just fundamentally don't believe in the mission of the organization in which they're in charge. So when you have someone like Betsy DeVos over at Education, when you have Scott Pruitt over at EPA, when you have Rick Perry over at Energy, when you have all of these people that are in charge, that are looking for ways to dismantle. So you're right, I mean, the public school system, the public school education I got gave me every opportunity. And I want to make sure that that's preserved, that we can work and find ways in which we can support teachers, that we can support the backbone of our education. And I've been actually doing a lot to trying to have roundtables with different teachers and different education administrators in the district, trying to learn and figure out what that plan is. So I won't lie to you, we don't have that full-fledged plan right now. And we're still talking through these issues in the same way that I'm talking to people about healthcare still, talking to nurses and doctors on these different issues. I want to make sure that, as I said, I'm trying to be very deliberate about my approach in terms of the issues that I'm focusing on, the issues where I'm trying to find that solution. I think as you get to know me, you'll learn that I'm somebody that is very deliberate, and sometimes I take a little bit longer time than people like as I'm trying to learn about these issues. But that's because there are huge consequences at stake. And at a time where we have a president and an administration that's making very rash decisions based off of ill information, based off of just stereotypes, I want to be the opposite of that. So what I promise you is that I want to support public education. I want to make sure that all of our children and all of us have access to quality education that's affordable at every level. That we make sure that students are not coming out from college with tremendous debt that limits their opportunities because education is supposed to expand their opportunities. But instead, because of the money involved, because of the privatization of so much of our education, we're actually hurting those opportunities. So, I want to continue to talk to you and others about how we can do that going forward.
All right, thank you. We have a question over here.
Hey, my name is Evan. So just a quick question. Would you stand, or rather, excuse me, with the New Jersey delegation, Senator Booker and Menendez stood strong against the Republicans during the government shutdown? Now, would you, and whereas Chuck Schumer kind of, made some concessions and caved a little bit, would you have stood strong with our New Jersey delegation?
Well, I think for me, I first of all, I just think it's absolutely atrocious that we were in this situation. And I think that was something that I found really frustrating. And then finding people like Tom Parker, they are, celebrating a fire that they put out a fire that they started. And I think that the frustration here is that when it comes to CHIP, we should never have been in a situation to start with where it had expired. My first reaction was, the words children, health insurance, and expired should just never be in the same sentence. So when it comes to DACA, when it comes to the dreamers, we should never have been in that kind of situation to start with. When they had plenty of opportunity and plenty of time to be able to move forward and earlier, if they just were able to focus on some of these issues instead of putting all of their efforts to try and get a tax bill passed that would hurt people here in New Jersey. So I wasn't part of all the discussions that they had. I don't understand all the details of what was promised by Mitch McConnell and others. So I don't know all that information that our delegation has. So I can't tell you for certain how I would come down. But what I can tell you is that this is just that dysfunction that we see. I worked as a government employee during the shutdown before. And I was one of the few people that still had to show up every day to work even though I wasn't getting paid. And I know how dangerous that was. I was working on national security issues, and there were people at the Pentagon, people in the intelligence community that just weren't there at their jobs. We weren't able to keep track of all these threats that we were facing. And what I want to make sure is that we have a government that can work and government that can function. But when I see that kind of blame game of who's to go, and whether or not this person or that person is going to vote on it, what I just want to do is just take that step back. Just say, I can't believe we're just in this situation where every year, or every few months, or every week, we just have to see whether or not our government's going to be open. That's not a functioning democracy.
Okay, we have another question here for you.
Andy, my name is Ron Simpson. Have you published a statement of purpose and a set of positions on the issues? Thinking of the woman who was talking about the Fox News issue, and I share her opinion. But do you have a set of issues that are concisely stated that represent your point of view and how you differ from MacArthur? One that I heard, I don't know whether it's true or not, but I believe at one point he was blaming you for the development of ISIS.
That was you?
But have you, in fact, developed a set of positions, and are they published somewhere where we can see them, or will they be? Because that's the kind of thing we can use when we go to our neighbors.
Yeah, absolutely. We're just about there. So here's where we kind of worked it out through this campaign. As I told you, for me, I'm not a career politician. I'm not somebody who's been working on these issues for years and years and years. So, and as I told you, I'm a very deliberate person. So I'm doing a lot to try to make sure that I'm listening to start, and that I have an ability to educate myself and learn up on these issues before I make sort of the firm decisions. For me, that's important. So what I've done is I've done about 50 different events throughout the process. I really wanted to make sure we have that kind of listening for first, where I have an opportunity to hear from people what some of their concerns are, like I said, what keeps them up at night. And I wanted to have that open discussion, and in the process of that, as we're kind of bringing that first round of events to a close, I've started up a policy committee, people who are experts, though, not just experts, but people who are affected by these issues as well, in the district, as well as people who are national experts on these issues. We're working through trying to find the right way to make sure that these are issues that are focused on this district that can come up with some interesting and innovative ideas to move this forward. What I can tell you are some of the issues that we've been focused on as I go around this district that I hear about are ways in which we can find better paying jobs, the ways in which we can support small businesses as the backbone and anchor of this district. Ways in which we can ensure that everyone in this country has health care, rich or poor, that we can make sure that that's something that can be a guarantee to people, not just a benefit. That we can make sure that we can try to work out plans to protect Social Security and find other ways to ensure people can retire with peace of mind. that we can actively combat and really take on the crisis of the opioid crisis. That we can better protect this district from future superstorms to make sure that we can be prepared as well as be better positioned afterwards to be able to recover even quicker. Finding ways in which we can support the joint military base and our veterans going forward. Those are some of the things that I hear over and over again, and we're working together to try to find solutions, try to find ways in which we can protect ourselves and prevent the Republicans from being able to make inroads on those issues that are going to make us worse off. So that's what I'm working on, and I promise you, as we build out this campaign further, that we'll make sure that we can have greater conversations as well as greater details on it. And that's something that I promise you.
Thank you, Andy. We have another question.
Andy, my name is Jeff Wilhelms. Years ago, I had an English student who is now a DACA recipient and a straight-A student at Ocean County College. How do you talk to that person about his future in the country? And how do you convince the largely conservative folks in Ocean County that it's in their best interest to create a path for citizenship for this student and all of the other deserving DACA students?
Yeah. Well, because I've met with people who are, when I've met with people who are part of DACA when I've been with our youth, what I tell them is that, I'm a son of immigrants. That I'm somebody who, as I told you, my father came to this country as an immigrant, came from a very poor background, was an orphan, and came here to try to study it. And the opportunities that were afforded to us were extraordinary. And when I understand that these are situations where people who are the dreamers are in our military, where there are people that are working jobs, where there are people that are contributing and supporting our community, they are American. Now, this is a way in which we need to make sure that we push forward and protect them. So what I tell them is that, for me, I see the erosion of the immigration that made this country great, that makes this country strong, and that we know that that's a core part of this democracy in this country. I see it in my own family. My wife is in it. So for me, that's incredibly important in every aspect of my own personal story. But with them, that's a promise that we make. That's something that we should be able to find a solution so we don't have to break up families, that we can protect them. Recognize that that's what makes this country stronger, is being able to draw in that down. People who are in the DACA program are exactly the type of people that we want, people that are hardworking, people that are in education and graduated schools, people that are serving in our military. And that's the kind of program that we need to be able to have going forward to help with that.
I know that, and you know that, but there are 11.7 million undocumented immigrants in this country, most of whom are from Latin America. If their legal status is resolved and if a path to citizenship is created, not just for the DACA students and the Dreamers, but for these 11.7 million undocumented immigrants, the Republicans know that these folks are going to vote overwhelmingly Democratic. That's why there's no resolution for this immigration problem. So, in the face of those political realities, how do you convince people to do the right thing? This is an ethical question.
Yeah.
But there's the political reality that is creating a huge shadow over the ethical resolution to this problem. And there are a lot of...
Pardon me, I'm going to interrupt. If I may interrupt, you've got some questions in the debate.
Okay.
And I appreciate what you're saying, but perhaps that's a one-on-one discussion with Andy after the meeting. I do need to move on to other questions. We have quite a few folks.
How you doing? A lot of tough questions, a lot of good questions, tough crowd. I just wanted to say thank you. Thank you for coming to run. As a Superstorm Sandy victim, I was shocked when Tom MacArthur carved it back down here. I was like, how are they going to let an insurance guy come and run here, and we're going to vote him in. And he won. And I just, some good tough questions. I want to say thank you for using your personal, connections and background to build such a strong campaign, the first serious, candidate we've had. So I want to say thank you, and I know I'll be knocking on doors, and I think if we all knock on doors and donate $5 a month, we can help you win. So thank you.
Hi, I'm a CNN junkie, and it's gotten so much worse since Trump got elected. I have lived here for 40 years, and what I don't understand is when I'm watching CNN for the first time, and this is probably congratulations to you, I have always taken it for granted in everybody here that a Republican is going to be elected for this district. I watch CNN, and although I love where I live, we're very unimportant to the overall of the nation. And yet, I watch CNN, and over I see advertisements for MacArthur. I have never seen that before. When we have our congressman run, there's no advertisements on TV. It's just why bother? Why the Republican Party would even bother to put money into against the Democrat? He's never going to win. So should I congratulate you that you have made the Republican Party nervous? So is MacArthur shaking in his boots? Because God, I hope so.
Let's assume that's a yes.
What I can say on that is that, a few days after I launched this campaign formally, MacArthur came out with a tech video online that basically said I'm helping ISIS or something lies like that. And it was one of those things where, it was interesting because the day after that happened was actually a day where I felt like I got more phone calls from people of support than I ever had, because they recognize that he's scared, that he knows that he's vulnerable. He wouldn't be attacking me by name 16, 17 months before Election Day unless he was concerned. So, for me, I'm willing to take those hits because, we're going to make sure we run a strong campaign right back at him. Now, where we're at right now is that, we need to build up the resources to be able to do that. But when I see that Paul Ryan's, super PAC is in the district, when I see that they've chosen this as a priority race, I think they see the same poll numbers that I see, which is that the MacArthur's in a lot of trouble. His disapproval numbers here in the district are way higher than his approval numbers. They see this as a very vulnerable district because it is. The reason why is because actions have consequences. And what I want to make sure we do is we can build a real opportunity where we can have people have a choice here in this district when it comes to November. So while I certainly don't like to see my name gradually remarked, it does give me great joy to know that we're getting under his skin, that we're building something here that keeps him up.
Thank you. My name is Janine, and I thank you very much for coming out to the district and talking to us. What keeps me up at night is my children's future. And I love everybody here participated and brought some very strong points. And I'm a little bit sick and tired of being identified from a Republican or Democratic issues, and they pick and choose how they want to identify us, and then they eat us up with it. Whether it's immigration or whether it's a healthcare or something, it's always our fault. How are we going to bring a united Democratic Party message to really what my concern is, because it's the future of my children, to the independent voters, the ones that don't go out to vote because they don't feel they got a strong enough candidate to carry a strong enough message, to have enough muscle to represent democracy. I believe we're living in dangerous times. And I don't think our kids know that. And I'd like to know what your strategy is to get to those young voters, the non-voters, and to get the united Democratic message out. I'm not ashamed of being a Democrat, but the Republicans would like to pick and choose what I should be ashamed of. And that's why our neighbors don't want to talk to us. They're all united, and they don't care. I'll never, and I can't change that. I know that. It's a generational thing as well. But there's something that has to be done in the face of this tyranny, quite frankly. And I don't think, personally, I don't feel like we are getting the message out when we kind of just go from one thing to another. We'll look at this, we'll look at that, and let the Republicans tell us what matters. So what are you going to do in your strategy, basically, to energize those group of voters that do not vote, that haven't registered, that will vote? Will you be able to reach them electronically? I'm really concerned about talking. They're not going to show up here.
No, that's right. And this is incredibly important. This is one of the issues that I was thinking about a lot before I formally jumped into this race. Am I going to be able to find the ways in which to get this message out and target people that might not otherwise want to listen? And for me, what encouraged me is that, early on, I spent a lot of time trying to talk to different groups, especially people who had voted for McCarthy before. And we worked hard to try to find these opportunities to do so. But having gone through that experience, what encouraged me is that when we can talk about these issues, when we try to find the right way to talk about using words, using messaging that tries to not just put it into that sort of Democrat, Republican silos, but talk about the values that they try to believe in. I saw a lot of great progress. For instance, for me, I'm not a traditional candidate. I've never run for office before. I'm not a traditional Democratic candidate in that way. But I actually think that's a good thing, especially in this time. And when I talk to people who are independents or people who voted for MacArthur before but are maybe a little concerned now, what resonates is that I've approached this my entire career. I have a track record of approaching it as trying to serve the American people. Someone who served under both Republicans and Democrats. I tell them that my first boss in D.C. was Senator Richard Lugar, a Republican senator from Indiana. And he and I didn't see eye to eye in everything. He knew that I was a Democrat. But he's somebody that believed in bipartisanship. Somebody who approached things pragmatically and held himself up with integrity. So, for me, I try to couch my discussions with people that might not identify themselves with the Democratic Party or might be averse to identifying themselves with the Democratic Party from that angle of service. From that angle of just trying to do what we need to do to look at the problems that we're facing and start from there. So the problem is that a third of our elderly in this country are completely dependent on Social Security for their income. That's a problem. Then we work back and try to figure out how to get there, how to do what we can to improve those people's lives, give them more to be able to live a life where they don't have to worry, a life where they can have peace of mind. We're still building this out with this campaign. We're still trying to find the right ways to connect. But we are finding those opportunities. We're doing house parties all throughout this district, trying to get people to be able to draw in their neighbors, people that wouldn't show up to an event like this, but might be willing to show up for a small gathering at someone's house and willing to be able to share and be able to talk in a more intimate setting. So we're trying to find different venues in which to do that, different ways in which we can approach. But the fact that I'm coming from that angle of service, coming from it with my background, I have found that has opened up some possibilities that I didn't necessarily know would be there from the beginning. So we'll continue to push this, and I agree with you, it's incredibly important. And we got teams of people going out in all these different communities, and that's something, if you sign up with, we'll be talking to you about. Because, we are trying to map each and every single township here in this district, trying to figure out, what are the opportunities there, listening and talking to people who live in these communities, where are our opportunities? Where do you think we're going to be able to find people that will at least give us an opportunity where that might actually listen to us as we try to share our vision for what we can do better? So that's the hope over the course of the next 10 months. It's going to be a lot of hard work, it is. And no guarantees that it will work all over the place. But it's still a fight worth fighting.
Okay, and we have another question after.
Yeah, so I would say, why don't we do this one question, then I'd love to stick around. The other men want to have sort of more direct conversations before I rush up and go check out.
Okay, we have, I think we have two more after this person, if you don't mind sticking out for two more.
But also, those of you that live in Mirage and Heritage Point, consider having a house party. Okay? So, touch base with
Andrea.
What about culture debate? What about all these communities? You know, 4,000.
That's not going to happen until after the primary.
Okay.
And there probably is going to be a primary.
All right, well, you don't need discussion here, but I understand your point, Marty. That's what happened.
Okay.
How's it going, Andy? So in my independent research of candidates, as far as race on this side, I was still looking into both sides. So in my research, I've seen official government documents that came out and listed you as a quote-unquote note taker, and I saw that in Politico that calls you a junior security aide. But I've seen also multiple statements here that you come out saying that you were a leader in the fight against ISIS. So earlier you were talking about from an accountability standpoint, being an accountable leader, being somebody who's responsible for their actions. So I want to know, throughout your tenure with the Obama administration, if you take responsibilities for any of the failures within the military war against ISIS.
Well, for me, the work that I did at the White House, yes, I was a relatively junior person at the White House. But that's because, I was at the White House and there was a lot, being able to serve directly for the president and vice president was, a real honor. I'm glad that I had those opportunities to be able to do that. For me, my role at the White House was as the Iraq Director of the National Security Council. So my job was, I was the only person at the White House that was working full-time monitoring the situation in Iraq. My job was to work as a coordinator across the government. And that's the role that the National Security Council does. We work across the government trying to be somebody that helps coordinate the broader effort. So we're bringing in to the table the State Department, the Pentagon, the intelligence community, trying to work together to be able to find solutions and find ways forward. So that was my effort there, was to try to make sure that everything we're doing is a whole of government effort. That we're making sure everyone's coordinated on this, we know what we're doing going forward. So, for me, of course, with the situations of war and conflict, there's always things that we can be doing. There's always, I always wish there was things that we could have done better in terms of, responding to U.S. hostages that were taken by ISIS. So more that we could have done to help some of these minority communities that were afflicted, and things that we could have done to try to embolden the Iraqi army to be able to do better. There's always that concern because war. That's just the war is something that just is horrible in its own right. And when you're dealing with people who are dying every single day, there's always going to be things that haunt me, and things that I always wish we had an opportunity to do. But when I go through this all, what I recognize is that we work within our efforts. And I believe that our servicemen and women and military leadership that I got to work with, people like Chairman Marty Dempsey, Chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff. I respected him. I respected his his approach on the military side. So I don't have when I look back on our time working there, no, I wouldn't criticize Chairman Dempsey or the work of our military. I think they came up with extraordinary efforts and did a lot of good in terms of helping save people. And having been in that room and watched what they were able to put together, working with the State Department, I'm incredibly proud of our public servants, especially our career public servants, for making sure that we can continue this process going forward.
We have two more questions for you, Andy. Eddie?
Hi, my name is Eddie. I'm at Ocean County College. So Ocean County is arguably like the drug capital of the country. So where's your stance on criminal justice reform that instead of just forcing obedience onto prisoners, is more of a focus on human compassion and rehabilitation to re-assimilate drug addicts or prisoners back into being productive citizens and not just labor as criminals?
My first job in politics wasn't in foreign policy. It was actually on homelessness issues. And issues. So I worked as an organizer at the Chicago Coalition for the Homeless when I was a student over there in Chicago. And a lot of the issues that I dealt with were people who were homeless and had issues with drug abuse or with criminal records, unable to find jobs, issues with healthcare where they're unable to get the healthcare that they need. And through that effort, we really did want to make sure that we were approaching that in a holistic way, where people coming out from the criminal justice system are given every opportunity that they can to be able to succeed and be able to make sure that their lives are able to have the jobs that they need and the support that they need to be able to do that. Because the problem is when you have that recidivism, when you see that kind of spiral, when you bring people out of the criminal justice system but don't give them opportunities in which to be able to get themselves on a better path, you see so much of that spiral right back into it. So, I certainly hope that we can make sure that we have a criminal justice system that is supporting people and helping them be able to get their lives on a better path. That's something that will help all of us and help our communities as well. So that's what we're hoping.
Thank you. We have a final question.
Hello, Andy. As no surprise to you and probably to a significant number of people in the audience, I am all about policy. This is my version of a question that's been asked, but it's a full specific platform. What specifically do you want to do for the powerless people here in the third? It's the only thing that to me matters in a candidate, and you've already said that you need time to talk to people, and it's coming, you need to talk to your experts. I understand that. It has been a while since you announced your candidacy, and I don't feel like I know that much yet, and I'm honestly anxious about it. No surprise, everything, nothing surprising me. I have been told by people that know more about politics and campaigns than me that I may not have realistic expectations in this sense, and that among other reasons, freshman congressmen don't have that much influence at first, that congressional campaign is very different than a presidential campaign where you do expect a full platform, and also that if you don't win, then your policies really don't matter that much if you don't get into the game. So, but on the other hand, what else do you fight for if not specific policy? I mean, that's your purpose, and you're one of the only people that represent powerless people in the district. You fight for specific policy. Gradually, you work towards specific things for people in this district. So I have a real conflict, and I want to ask you, please help me understand what is realistic to expect. What are the realities of a congressional campaign like this as far as my expectations of specific policy? Because I do hear other candidates at the same kind of level talk about specific policy, and I'm not sure if I'm not experienced. Bernie woke me up. That's when I came into politics and everything. So I'm going to ask you, please help me understand what are realistic expectations, and if I may, specifically when can we expect whatever you're about to tell me is reasonable?
No, that's right. No, I'm happy to answer that. So, in terms of this campaign and how it's unfolding, I'll give you a sense of this. So I started exploring this opportunity. I started seeing whether or not I felt like there was an opportunity for me to be, to run for this seat and have a chance to win. I started that, sort of late spring, early summer. As I told you, so it has been a while since I, started thinking about this. Now, as I told you, the issue that I had with my child, over the summer, I shut down the campaign. I shut down the campaign for several months to be able to make sure I could focus in on my family, because what I knew is that if I didn't have a family, if I had an unhealthy son, that I would not be able to continue. If I didn't feel like my family was in a position to be able to support the magnitude of what it takes to run for Congress, I didn't think that I could give you my all. What I promised you is that I would do this full time. I'm going without pay for almost 2 years to be able to run this campaign and do everything that I need to be able to do this. It's a big commitment, and one that we didn't take lightly as a family. And I believe you deserve a candidate that can do this full time, because running for Congress is not a part-time job, especially not against someone like the party. So I took the summer, I took several months off to be able to focus. So for me, we really started up this campaign in earnest at the beginning of September. We spent a lot of time making sure that we can build up the infrastructure, do everything we can, because it wasn't going to work if it was just me. So bringing on staff, bringing on the resources we need to be able to even see if this is viable. As you know, there's a lot of people saying, can someone be strong enough to go up against McCarthy? There's a lot of issues about whether or not there's even a viable Democrat to be able to do this. So I need to prove early on that I can build that infrastructure, that I can build a team, that I can be a candidate that is taking this seriously to be able to do that. So I did dedicate a lot of my effort over 2017 to make sure I can build up those resources, go out and listen to people, go out and talk to communities and see what the possibility is there. Make sure we can build up the resources so that people take us seriously, so that we're not left out on our own, but we can build something that the rest of the country can rally behind. So that's a lot of what we've been doing. And as I told you, we've been focused on having these conversations, and now we're in the process of building up in terms of what are the issues and how we're going to be doing it. I laid out some of the issues that are important to me: better paying jobs, health care, retiring with peace of mind, and these issues more locally like the opioid crisis, preparing for the next superstorm, things like that we're working on, talking to leaders in the communities and others who are afflicted, to try to find solutions that work for you. Because this is not a cookie-cutter project. I can't just take something off the shelf of the think tank and say, this works for our district. And we want to make sure that we have something that really has our fingerprints on this going forward, that we can build off. So as we are working on building our new website, we will have greater detail about these issues. We will have some details about some of the stances that I believe are going to be the right ones here. And we'll continue to build that out. So I don't necessarily have a timeline for a full platform. And yet, I'm not running for president here. I'm trying to do what I can to be your best representative. So I told you, I'm not a career politician. I'm not somebody who's been working on these issues for decades. So I want to make sure I don't take impulsive decisions, that I don't choose issues based on slogans. I really want to make sure that I know it. Once I know something, I know it in my heart, and I think through it carefully, I talk about it with you, and I make a decision with you, I will be a relentless fighter. I will champion those causes that we choose together to work on as a priority. But I don't believe that my role as a candidate and a potential representative in the district is to impose my priorities on you. It's to listen to you. And work together on finding that common solution on these issues that are threatening all of us. So I want to make sure that we move forward. And I owe you transparency in terms of where I stand on issues as I work through with you and with others on how we get there. I hope to have that as soon as possible. Like I said, we'll be releasing them, rolling, going out as we're going forward. I think it's important. I think policy is critically important. I say that as someone who's been working on policy in my career. So I trust me, I really want to make sure we get into that. But what I think is a good measure by which you try to judge me or any candidate is understanding where are they coming from on these values. So, like I said, I may not have a 30-page or 100-page plan on what we can do on improving healthcare in this country. I don't have that. I'm not an expert on those issues yet. I'm working on it. But what I can tell you is, as I said, is I want to make sure that everyone in this country has coverage. That everyone deserves is something that's affordable, something that's going to lower prescription drug costs, these other things that we're dealing with. I want to make sure that people can retire with peace of mind. These are the goals and the values that I embody and I'm championing. And I think a lot of you would agree with those goals, with those values, those top-line values. So I wanted you to know that when I go into Congress, yes, I'll be one of 435 voices, and the legislative agenda is going to be set by a lot, the president and a lot of the leadership, and there's going to be constraints on what a single representative can do. So where I stand on a particular issue now, it depends on what the legislation looks like when it comes up for a vote. It's going to be different every time. There's going to be a lot of nuances there. So can I tell you where I stand on any given issue right now? No. In terms of what legislation is out, in the future, hypothetical legislation that's there. So what I tell you is that it's going to be I want you to see and talk to me about these values so that you know when an issue comes up 2 years or 4 years down the road on healthcare, you know where I'm getting at. You know what I'm striving for, what I want to build towards. And then we're going to have those opportunities like those monthly town halls to be able to talk through the details at that time. And for me to explain and be transparent with you about what we're up to. So that's what I ask of you, is to understand the way in which I'm trying to approach it. I'm not trying to just write bumper stickers here. I really want to build something great. I want to build something amazing. And again, I thank you so much.